How are you, Mariya?
Hello. Hi.
It's great to see you. I'm
Yeah, just
Sayal
like
Her. Thank you so forgive me for interrupting you. It's great to see you, Mariya. I am Sayal Her, and I welcome everyone to Catalyzing the Future. And we have another session with Mariya today in the series, How to Become a Thriving Human. We've had the great honor for a number of conversations with you, Mariya, and specifically on resilience and thriving. And if you were very much focusing on resolutions, and we talked about the heart of success. And today we're going to focus on anxiety. But before I allow you to kind of jump in respectfully, Mariya is a keynote speaker, tremendous individual, 2 times TEDx speaker, internationally recognized, very much a thought leader in the, if you will, intentional adaptability and human potential space. So we are honored to have you.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this beautiful introduction. I'm very happy to be here.
It's definitively great to have you, and we've covered a lot of ground already, but today's topic especially is perhaps more meaningful and impactful than anything else in what we're all experiencing. I would love for you to kind of kick us off and guide us a little bit, Mariya.
I think so too. I agree with you completely. Such a crucial topic, and it's not talked about often enough. And unfortunately, there is just so many misconceptions about what anxiety is, how it feels, what causes it, and in particular, how to tame it. So today, I would like with you to bust a few myths and to talk deeper about this issue, about with that we call anxiety, and to offer a few solutions, short-term and long-term solutions, both. So I'm very, very excited about this conversation. Anxiety is something that I experienced through most of my life, and I still experience. And interestingly, I actually didn't know till a couple of years ago that this is what I felt. I thought that was a normal state, to be always worried, to be agitated, to grind, to be always busy thinking, either to be busy or busy thinking, to keep stressing out. So I thought that was a normal state, that this is how, I was supposed to survive, that this is what is required in order to survive. And only a couple of years ago, when I had my massive burnout, when I burned just into dust, figuratively speaking, this is when I finally understood what was happening. And about a year ago, I experienced this moment of complete peace. Interestingly, I wasn't meditating or doing anything
Mm.
like that. I was just walking somewhere to get something in my apartment. And suddenly I just felt at peace. And I just felt better than anything ever. I never experienced it before. And this is when I understood, okay, this is how I'm supposed to feel. And of course, I'm saying it happened out of the blue. It didn't
Yeah.
happen out of the blue because I was doing a lot of things to rewire my brain. So that was the result of it. But it's just such an incredible state of being, just feeling at peace, not to feeling worrying all the time. And this is what I'm striving for. This is what I'm striving to achieve more of. And I really would love to share a few of my experiences and a few of tips that I put together to overcome anxiety, to get off that roller coaster of
Yeah.
anxiety,
Yeah.
and to enjoy life more fully. Yeah.
Excellent. Mariya, one of the things that you just said is extremely powerful in that there is something that allows you to break through, to pierce. What was it in your journey, if you will, that really caused that moment to emerge for you? Can you give us any insights there?
I will. I most definitely will. But before that, I just would like to highlight that I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how anxiety comes about. So, how do we get into that state of anxiety? And it's not necessarily having a traumatic experience. I mean, a trauma is one of the ways to be tipped into anxiety, when trauma is so deep that it just rewires your brain overnight, and you just can't let it go, and
Mhm.
it just is always there. It's not necessarily always have to do with traumatic experiences. The way I see it is anxiety depends on two elements. So the first element is stresses that we experience. So the quantity of those stresses, and I will give a few example
Mhm.
of what stresses I mean. And the other element that is very important is how resilient we are, because more resilient we are, more stress we can handle.
Mhm.
So
Excellent.
when we want to solve this issue, when we want to get off this anxiety roller coaster, the main thing is to understand that we need to work on both reducing the amount of stresses that we're experiencing and increasing our resilience at the same time, because life is just going to be more and more stressful. In fact, many experts now say that in one day we experience more stress than our ancestors in our entire lifespan. And
Wow.
once I give you a few examples, you will see what I mean. And more stresses will just appear. So we really need to work on the level. We need to work on our resilience. We really need to increase the level of our resilience. And we roller coast when either the amount of stresses increases or our resilience decreases, or both happen simultaneously. And this is when we go, into more anxious state. And
That,
when we
I,
can
I,
handle it better,
that's a great
when certain
description.
stresses,
That's a great
yeah.
description. Forgive me for interrupting you. It's very powerful when you begin to compare the two, exactly, because most people don't really compare them the way that you just described, Mariya.
There are thought leaders that think that it's just about resilience, but I think that, with all due respect to what monks are saying and those experts are saying, I think we just never had such a great amount of stresses through our evolution, that our brain and body are just not used to many of those stresses, and just working on resilience is not enough. I do think that we need to be more mindful, more considerate, in particular what we let into our life, and what kind of stresses are there, what can we get rid of or reduce, but at the same time to work on our resilience, in particular by improving certain skills that we will talk about later a little bit. Another thing, if I may, before we just go further with the roller coaster, one of the main reasons why I talk about it is a roller coaster, and I'm going to say something that I haven't heard from anyone before. I haven't heard any experts saying this. I haven't read anywhere about this. This is purely my conclusion. It's based on the research that I've been doing, it's based on my own life experiences, and it's based on me just seeing my friends and my clients. So,
Hmm.
just what's happening in my circle. So, I would like to say this is that I haven't met a single person that I know who suffers depression and doesn't suffer anxiety.
Mm.
This is my personal experience with my life, with my research, with my circle, and I'd like to repeat that I haven't met a single person who I know suffers from depression but doesn't suffer from anxiety. So for me, it looks like anxiety is like a precursor to depression in many, many, many cases.
Hmm.
So if we solve this anxiety problem, then automatically we can resolve a lot of depression cases as well. So it
Yeah.
kind of looks like we peak with anxiety, and when we just at a certain point we burn out, the brain says enough, I can't take it anymore. It seems like there's just too much stress, and like the brain says everything is a threat, and just at a certain point it says, look, I need to recharge, and this is where the person just goes down into depression, because it's I think it's a way of our brain to recover, to recharge, to get energy in order to keep going. But once again,
Interesting.
I haven't heard anyone saying it like this, and it's just my conclusion at this point of my research. So maybe my opinion will change in the future, but for the last couple of years, that's what's been on my mind. That this is what I see just around me in particular, that anxiety is a precursor to, in many situations, a precursor to depression. So if you tame anxiety, you will also help yourself not to fall into depression.
Hmm. And exactly why the topic is so relevant, especially today. Most definitely.
I think so. Yeah. And, just while we're on the topic of depression, I'm really happy to see that there's so many organizations bringing awareness and there are so many conversations. I do wish there were more conversations about how to resolve this. Because when you're depressed, and of course depression comes in different forms and anxiety comes in different forms, because in particular we are all very different and we are in different circumstances. So when we experience either, it is quite unique to us. There are certain categories that anxiety and depression is broken into, but still, when even like two people with anxiety talk to each other, or two people with depression talk to each other, they can't fully understand like what the other person feels, because it is very, very unique and it is very different. But nevertheless, I really wish to see more conversations about how to help in both situations,
Yeah.
because these are two states that, it's very difficult to calm yourself down or to bring yourself up once you're there. So the best way to go about it is actually to focus on prevention. So to do certain things that wouldn't let you get into those high states of high anxiety or states of deep depression, because once you're there, it becomes very difficult to bounce back. So I think we need more conversations on prevention. We need more conversations like we're having today about, okay, what is it I can do about it? I really wish to see more conversations like that.
I think I most definitely, and I think we look historically, depression's already been problematic across the world as we've just evolved over time, but even more so today than ever. So definitively, maybe we can have you come back specifically and talk on depression as a session. I think it would be brilliant, quite honestly. So I think it would be a good topic to get into. But help us understand kind of how, from your perspective and experience, do we begin to tame it? What are some of the things that we should begin to focus on, Mariya, in terms of anxiety?
So the way I think about it is that imagine yourself sitting in a bar and the bartender called life is handing you those cocktails. And some of us get different cocktails, others get same cocktails, but because we are different, we react to them differently as well. So you keep drinking those cocktails, and this is with different types of stress. And this is what builds up and gets you anxious, makes you anxious. So one of the ways, like I said, either we're reducing stress or we're building resilience. And we had this conversation, I think it was our first episode when we discussed three-legged chair of resilience. So the stronger your chair is, the stronger you build those three legs of that chair of resilience, the more stress you can handle.
And what are some of the things that we should keep our eyes on and really, kind of make it real? And I keep going back to the word tame because it's such a powerful word, if you will, as you mentioned it.
So when it comes to stresses, for example, as I said, like we get those cocktails. It's not just one thing. It's usually an accumulation of things. And of course, when we think about stress, we usually think about some obvious examples like, dealing with a negative person, for example, someone being rude to you, or I don't know, losing your wallet, for instance, or when I broke my leg a few years ago, my foot a few years ago, that was a major stress. But there are so many other stresses that in particular are elements of the present time. For instance, we're not meant to spend a lot of time sitting. We're not meant to sit for more than 4 hours a day. In fact, we have to move at least once an hour. This is just how our body and our brain evolved. And when we sit, it's actually huge, huge, huge stress on our body for many, many reasons. One of them is that it actually, if we feel like slouched, then our breathing changes. We start breathing. We don't take deep breaths as we should, but our breath becomes very shallow. So our brain thinks that, oh, something is happening, because when does a person or an animal breathes very quietly? When they think they're in danger, when they're trying to be quiet. So this is where brain thinks that, oh, maybe there is some danger if my person doesn't breathe properly. So that actually pushes towards anxiety and depression. So just one of the examples, sitting at a desk, spending more than 4 hours a day in a sitting position is one of the major stresses.
Yeah.
Another stress is, for example, lack of sunlight. Now, I've heard this statistics that in US in particular, about Americans usually spend at least 97% of their time through the day indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's the same in
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
you know,
Far too much,
especially
far too high percentage. Yes.
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 So lack of sunlight is really stressful to our body. We need to have from somewhere between 10 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the intensity of the sunlight and depending on our age in particular, because as older we get, the more sunlight we need. So we suffer from lack of sunlight. And even like among my friends, I hear people complaining because I'm in Melbourne and now it's summer here, and usually summers are hot and very sunny,
Yeah.
like really great summers, but this summer wasn't that. Plus we had 3 lockdowns.
Yeah.
So of course people don't get enough of sunlight, and they can feel it. It's a major stress that impacts a lot of things in our body. Another stress, for example, is of course lack of contact that many of us experience now. Things like lack of sex and having sex that is not satisfying, for example. Eating certain foods like highly processed foods, is very stressful for our body and our brain, because in particular our brain doesn't recognize a lot of chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't understand what your body gets, just can't recognize them and realize how to deal with them. So when we eat junk food, when we eat, I call them junk food products, in particular when we eat highly processed foods, it's very, very stressful for both our body and our brain. So there's a lot of stresses in terms of information, for example. So for instance, news are actually designed to be very, very negative, so to keep our attention.
Mm-hmm.
So purposely news are designed to be negative, or even when we see things like advertisements and commercials, they usually start with a negative point, with a pain
Yeah.
point, and also to keep our attention. So we have to be careful what kind of information we let into our life, in particular through TV, whether it's watching news or watching TV shows or watching movies. Like I've become very selective what I watch nowadays. And of course, what we get through social media, because also on social media, a lot of things that we see are fake, and they're not true. And there's also an interesting statistics that when they looked at behavior of young girls, that going through a fashion magazine and being on social media for a young girl in less than 4 minutes can, increase change their perception of themselves and of the reality to the point of depression. So it takes only just a few minutes for someone to be pushed towards anxiety and depression just through flipping through magazines and going through social media and thinking that is real. And of course, it's important who our circle is, who are the people around us are. And one of the things that I found to be very interesting through my research is that first group of people that we need to get rid of is people that we feel ambivalent about.
Mm-hmm.
Not people
Very
who
well
we feel
said.
negatively
Yeah.
about, but people
Yeah.
who feel, yes.
Yes.
So when we can't make a decision about a person, whether they're friend or foe, when we're hesitant about, what their motives are, what their place in our life is, these are people that we need to let go first.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have greater perspective on certainty, positive or negative, versus ambivalence, which you have less degree of certainty. Mariya, I have to tell you, I love how you're describing these factors, because if you truly think about it, these are things that we can, with awareness and mindfulness, become more in our control. Don't flip through the magazine. Take a walk. Enjoy yourself. Find ways, even if you can't take a walk, go to the window and just look outside and appreciate the sun. I mean, these are very powerful things that we can do immediately.
Yes. So this is the first element that we're discussing, how to reduce stresses that come into my life. Just to, have a conversation with yourself to realize, okay, what are those stresses are? What are the things that bringing me down? What are the things that are affecting me? Maybe I can part my ways with certain negative people. Maybe I can watch less of dramas,
Yes.
or maybe I can watch less of scary movies. Maybe I can be less on social media. Maybe I can move my body, at least once an hour and get a desk that is a rising desk like I have. So happy that I got it. It was like one of the best decisions of my life to get that desk that goes up and down, and so I can stand down, I can sit down whenever I need to. So there's just so many things that we can reduce that are stressing us out, and we usually know what they are. Of course, there's a lot of invisible factors, like, for example, chemicals in water. So chlorine,
Mm-hmm.
fluoride that comes in water, they're very bad for our body, for our system. And of course, it's good to put filters. Like I have filters all around the house, and I really, I really noticed the difference once I started drinking filtered water. So it's a stress that we don't think about. Or, for example, Wi-Fi signals. The other day, I was connecting something to my wireless network, and I realized that in my house, I have a cross section of 30 different Wi-Fi signals coming from all my neighbors.
Wow.
And they're affecting us, the invisible
Yeah.
stress that affecting us very, very strongly. So if you can turn off your Wi-Fi overnight, you can, it's going to be really a great service to your body and your brain.
And these are such practical and basic things that we live with, and they're invisible to us in so many ways because we just accept them. Whether it's Wi-Fi we're talking about, or the water that we drink, or other things that we do just in our natural day-to-day activities.
So yeah, that was the first element to the first part of the formula, how to get off the roller coaster of anxiety. And the second part is to improve our resilience. And I think when it comes to being an anxious state, so three major things that we can address is to work on our skill of confidence, work on our skill of focus. And these both are skills, soft skills that can be developed, and we all should be working on them. And the third thing that I would love to discuss today is how to collaborate with our microbiome. So it has to do more with nutrition, but I wouldn't be talking about what we need to eat. I would be talking more about how we should consume food and how we should go about it. So with skill of confidence, I think we already discussed it in the past many times in our chats. I just want to mention that once we become confident, for example, we stop comparing ourselves to other people. And here goes your social anxiety.
Yeah.
When you walk into a room and you just don't compare yourself to anyone, and you're just ready to chat to everyone, you don't think about what other people think of you. So when you become more confident, you let those things go. So here's a solution to social anxiety, basically. Or when we become more confident, we allow outer circumstances affect us less, and we become much prompt with decision making and much faster with implementing those decisions. So once again, we fear less the future, whether something happened, whether we're setting up a goal, regardless of what it is. Confidence helps us to calm down and not to overreact where actually no reaction is needed in the first place.
Yeah. Eloquently said. Very eloquently said.
Skill of confidence, let's talk about it in 2 weeks when we tackle time management, time management, and how to get most productive. So let's tackle skill of focus in a couple of weeks when we have our next chat. But let's talk about food. It's such an important topic, in particular because what we eat affects our microbiome. And just to give a bit of an intro, microbiome is something that it's a normal part of our body. It's bacteria, viruses, fungi, even single cell organisms that we have inside our body and on our body, like, for example, in our hands, in our lungs, for instance, in our mouth. And the most important, even now, a lot of experts support the opinion that we have microbiome in our brain. So for a very, very long time, it was thought that brain was basically sterile. But now more and more specialists talk about, it looks like we have microbiome in our brain as well.
Interesting.
And this is an amazing topic that, got proper attention only within the last few years, although it's something that was mentioned 2,000 years ago by Hippocrates. We've been doing, most of the research has been done within the last about 5 years on this. And it's very important because when we look at microbiome, we see that it's connected to basically everything. It's connected to our energy levels, our physical pain threshold, how resilient mentally we are. It's even connected to things, oh, of course, it's connected to things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease, ADHD, autism. So these are just some of the examples, cancer, just some of these examples. But it's also connected to things like how likely we're to be bitten by mosquitoes,
Wow.
who we get sexually attracted to, and even things like paternity and maternity instincts. So it was found recently in a very interesting study that a certain type of E. coli bacteria actually decreases maternity instincts. So the mom who has this type of E. coli bacteria is more neglectful to their kids. So
Intriguing.
microbiome plays an enormous role, and anxiety and depression are linked to microbiome as well, in particular our gut bacteria. So I think that if Elon Musk recently asked where he should invest money into or donate money into when he was announced as the richest person in the world or second richest person in the world. So he tweeted, "It's a shame I didn't respond because I'm not on Twitter." I would have said, look, invest into microbiome.
Yeah.
This could be the answer to all health issues, so it seems. And, I'm only halfway through this book. It's called Fiber Fueled. It's an incredible book because I've been doing a lot of research over the last few years on microbiome. And in this specifically book, I found the best description of why microbiome is important and how to collaborate with it. So how to help certain, those type of gut bacteria that is good for us, how to help them to thrive, and how to reduce the amount of microbiome that is not good for us, because it's all very, very different. Also, like a couple of years ago, the opinion was that maybe there was like 1,000 types of microbiome. Now experts say that it looks like it's more than 36,000 types of microbiome.
Wow.
Can you imagine? And
Yeah.
every one of them does a certain function, and it affects in particular our levels of hormones. It affects our immune system. It affects, like I said, our energy levels. It affects how our brain functions. It's such an incredibly important topic that I'm surprised there is no more conversations happening about it. I can see we out of time.
We're definitely, but it sounds like, I mean, this is at the fundamental level of anxiety and how you can deal with anxiety, what we eat, how we experience each other, how we experience the world around us. I mean, there's so many aspects that bring us to this. I was thinking about really all the research that we've yet to do and all the learnings that we have from the research on microbiomes and what have you that we probably haven't leveraged, exactly to your point.
Maybe just quickly, if you would like to start collaborating with your microbiome, so just like 2 pieces of advice that I would like to quickly give. First one, get proper sleep, because it is a two-way street. They work for us, but we also need to create an environment for them to thrive. Because if we don't create an environment, in particular by reducing the level of stress and in particular by getting proper sleep, it's not just about nutrition. It's not just about what we eat.
Yeah.
It's also about all other things. Because they're on us, in us. So we are their environment. So if we get proper sleep, we create better environment for good gut bacteria to help us. And the second piece of advice: eat a rainbow. I'm not promoting vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, with all due respect. I'm not an advocate, but eat a rainbow. So in particular in this book, it says that per week we should eat at least 30 types of different plants, preferably vegetables and herbs. So I think it's quite, especially the second piece of advice is quite easy to follow, that sit down, write a list what vegetables and herbs you like and throw a few vegetables into it, because every plant has their mix of bacteria, and also every plant has fiber, certain types of fiber that helpful to that bacteria. So when we consume those foods, we help good bacteria to populate our gut and to survive and to thrive, instead of giving space to those type of microbiome that are not good for us. So try to get proper sleep. And the second part is eat a rainbow, at least 30 different types of vegetables and herbs per week.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. And exactly as it, we've got more conversations coming. It's definitely, Mariya, a whirlwind of ideas around addressing anxiety and the roller coaster, and some great guidance. So always appreciate it. And we look forward to our next conversation, exactly as you said, around time management, and we'll explore it together. So
I'm really
thank you.
looking forward to it. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, Mariya. And thank you for everyone who's joined us or listening to it. And by all means, we hope you subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you and having you again. Thank you so much.